So what is the number one metric you need to check or you need to know in order to tell if your Facebook ads are actually going to work or are working or are in the right key performance indicators to be profitable, scale, all that kind of stuff? Well, my name is Jason Nyback, and I spend invest about $1 million a year on Facebook ads to get high-ticket coaching clients, and I've been doing this for a really long time, since about 2003 online. So I figured out a lot of stuff, and I create these videos to document and talk about what we're doing on ads. So let's get into it. One of the biggest problems coaches have, they have no idea when they start running ads if it's going to work, right? Generally, you probably know that every month you're getting 2-3 clients a month from maybe referrals, some word of mouth stuff, just random people hitting your website. Maybe you've got some organic stuff going on. You got a Facebook group, you do a Facebook Live and pick a couple clients up. At the end of the day, you can usually bank on 3, 4, 5, 10 clients with your other stuff. Then you go to ads and you turn your ads on and it's like, I don't know what to do. Do I just keep spending? Is it just eventually going to get better? What do I spend $5,000 before I get a client? How do I know? Should I watch for maybe cheaper clicks? What do I do, right? And a lot of coaches just don't know, right? So the bottom line is they have no idea. So they spend a bunch of money on ads, and if it works, well, I'll just keep doing it. If it doesn't work, well, then it failed, or I'll just keep going until I run out of money or give up. What do you do? And what is these metrics you need to be knowing and looking at? Well, it's like going somewhere, right? You don't just ever get in your car and be like, I'm going to go on a 3-day road trip and we'll see where I get to. Nobody does that, right? Or maybe you do, but you'd intentionally just want to do that for random trip reasons. But, if you're trying to go somewhere, you know where you're going to go, you know how to get there, how long it's going to take, all that kind of stuff, and you have a GPS. So let's talk about this so you don't randomly just waste all your money on ads. What is the number one metric we track to know if our ads are going to work? And granted, remember, we invest heavily into Facebook, into the ads. And so we've got to know this. Well, let's talk about some of the numbers first that aren't as important but can seem important. The first number is how much you're paying to get an email address, a webinar lead, all right? That's not that important. A lot of people out there will try and get really cheap webinar leads, okay? And now, what the metric you want to see is we like to say, and again, these are what we look at. I don't know what anybody else is out there, but kind of our metrics are, look, if you get 10 webinar registrations, you should realistically, we're looking at, you want to have at least one person book a call, okay? So 1 out of 10. So a lot of people are trying to grind Facebook for cheap webinar leads, right? Cheaper the lead, less money spent. Hey, if I spend $40 to get a webinar registration, and that's for 10 webinar registrations, that's like $400. Well, what if I can get it for $10? Well, now I only spent $100. Well, doesn't $100 sound better than $400? Well, not exactly, okay? Because here's the thing. What is the quality of that lead? All right. What is the quality of those people booking the webinar emails? And then if we're getting 10% of people booking calls off the end of that webinar, well, what exactly is the quality level of that of the webinar, of the coaching lead, the application, right? Because you got 10 people booked a call, or 10 people registered, 1 person booked a call, 1 out of 10. That's what we do, what we like to see. So if the quality isn't that great on that 1 person who booked a call, then you got to spend way more money to get more calls booked. So your cheap leads, your $10 webinar registration, now could potentially be 50 or 60. You'd have to spend, hypothetically, maybe you got to get 50 webinar registrations to get a quality call. So now you're spending $500 or $600 to get 1 qualified call. Or the other way, you're spending $400 to get 1 qualified call. So $40 a lead, good call. $10 a lead, bad call. Now, again, this is an example. It's a hypothetical example, right? But what I'm trying to get at is oftentimes cheap leads on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're getting them don't equal qualified applications. In fact, rarely do they ever, in my experience. Another metric that is popular, cheap cost per click. The theory goes, well, if I spend less to get a click, right? So let's use this example. We're going to get 10 webinar registrations. Let's hypothetically say 10% of the people who hit your site are giving you their email address, okay? So in order to get 10 webinar registrations, I need 100 clicks. If those 100 clicks are, $10, so that means I'm going to spend, $100 to get 10 webinar registrations. So then spending less per click means I'm going to get cheaper webinar registrations, which I'm going to get cheaper call bookings, which I'm going to make way more money, right? No, it doesn't work that way, all right? It can, and sometimes it does, but you rarely want to focus on cheap to get qualified. Those things are like a lot of times polar opposites, and here's why. You might be having to water down your message. It might not be accurate. You might just be reaching very opportunistic people. And a lot of times the qualified people are more expensive to reach because everybody else is trying to reach them because they're more qualified, right? So what is the number one metric that we track that really dictates everything? Well, it's cost per client, okay? Now, before I get into that, what I need you to do is just hit the like button so that we can get this out there, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, just be sure to hit that so we can get you more of these videos. Now, what does that mean? Well, hypothetically, let's work the math. You spend $400 to get a qualified call, okay? $400, and you enroll 1 out of 3. So that means you spent $1,200 to get a sale. That's your cost per sale. So let's say your coaching program's $6,000. Now, you spent what, $1,400 or $1,200? So that means you're making 5 times back what it costs to get you a client. So it's a 5 times ROI on ad spend. So for every $1,200, you're making $6,000. Does that make sense? And so again, this isn't exact. I mean, everybody's going to be different. I don't know what you're going to do. But that's just a hypothetical example. So then, now you know how to scale. It's like, well, if the average cost per client right now is costing me $1,200, and my average income per client is $6,000, that means I have a 5 times ROI on my ad spend, return on ad spend, okay? So now the question becomes, how many clients do I want a month at that number? Well, if I want 10 clients a month to make $60,000, what am I going to do? I'm going to spend $12,000 on ads. So whatever that works out to be, $400 per day, right? And then theoretically, if all things being equal, that's going to give me $60,000 in revenue. I take the ad spend out, and what's left over is gross profit to pay for tools, maybe some help, and whatever else you got going on, merchant fees and stuff like that. So that's what the most important metric is. Most coaches have no idea what their cost per sale is. They know they charge $2,000, but they have no idea how much it's costing them to get that $2,000 and if that's good or if it's bad. So then the question becomes, what is a good ROI? That really depends. In our kind of rule of thumb that we go by, and again, you do whatever you want. This is what we do. Generally, I like to see clients and we want to see a 3x, right? Spend it all, you get 3 back. That leaves room for margin of error, right? Because if there's coaches out there who, if they're hypothetically, if it's a 1.5 times ROI, they're going to scale to the moon. Well, the problem is as you scale, and you scale into 10, 20, 30, 50,000 a month, you're going to have this thing called infrastructure. You're going to need some support. You're going to need maybe some VAs, maybe some staff, maybe somebody doing your calls for you. All of that is expensive, okay? Also, you want a little bit of margin of error for testing because you're going to constantly be testing the registration pages, testing the ads, testing this, all that kind of stuff. There's expenses within that. So realistically, I would want to see roughly a 3x ROI or a little less, somewhere right around there, and you can scale. And at that point, I'd scale. Okay, that's what I would look at. Unfortunately, most coaches don't understand this, so they're spending, $1,200, making $5,000, $6,000, going, geez, I'm broke. I can't make any money. These ads won't work. And I'm like, let me get this straight. For every dollar you're spending, you're getting 4, 5, or 6 back, or even 3 back. Well, how much did your mutual funds pay you in the last 12 months, right? Maybe 5% after all their fees, 10% maybe. On an average year, the S&P 500 runs right around 9-10% over a period of like decades, okay, averaged out. So, and then it becomes, well, how can I scale? And that's the biggest thing you got to understand. So, don't wait too long. My recommendation is don't wait too long. Okay, once it's working and it's templated and it's going, you're like, good. That's when you start ramping those ads up. And that's how coaching businesses scale, right? Everybody's different. These are obviously hypothetical examples. But again, just realize if it's working and you know what the metrics are, the next job is to scale, right? Whatever that means to you, and grow. Because that's great if you spend $1,000 to make $3,000, $4,000 from one client, but it's not a lot, it's a little bit, and we need more room, right? So you can grow your business and grow all that other stuff. All right, that's the number one metric we track going to get high-ticket clients is cost per client, because then it tells us how much margin we have to succeed. See you on the next video.